Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a comment. Today I'm going to do something sort of abstract, and I was kind of feeling like making a bracelet, so I'm going to make an abstract bracelet with kind of random pattern with an overall rectangular profile. And it should be kind of a beginner-ish sort of project, maybe a early intermediate, but it's going to be pretty straightforward, I think, and it should be a fun one. So before we get started, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon, and I especially wanted to thank Mary M for upgrading from the first tier up to the Silver Stars tier, which is the third tier. So thank you for that. I appreciate your support. And all of you over there have created such a nice environment. I really love what's going on over there, so thanks for that. The other group is my YouTube subscribers. Thanks so much for being such staunch supporters. I appreciate all the nice comments, and I really appreciate the financial contributions like the Buy Me a Coffee or the Super Thanks. Those things really help with the rising cost of materials. Thanks for that. All right, let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea books, which you can find in my merch store if you're interested. It has been super useful for me to start. Ever since I started doing the YouTube channel, I started sketching out my ideas in advance, and I think I get a better outcome if I do that. There we go. It's got a nice grid in the background to help me keep things sort of symmetrical. So here's what I drew up for today. I kind of decided to go with something relatively simple, but with kind of a chaotic pattern in the middle. I've done a few things like this in the past, but not exactly like this, so this should be a kind of a fun piece, I think. But again, it's not going to be too seriously hard, I don't think. We have to make a frame for it, and then we just start piecing in the individual pieces. So I think it'll be kind of a beginner-ish project, or an early intermediate at the very highest, I would think. I'm going to use my miter vise jig to cut some nice 45-degree angles to connect these all together. The length I chose was 5.5 inches, which is 14 centimeters roughly, and about 19 millimeters wide, which I don't remember if I measured inches. Yeah, about 3/4 of an inch, which was what I was kind of guessing. So that's where we'll start probably. I'm going to use 14 gauge square wire for everything, and so it's not going to have a huge bold look. It's going to be relatively thin. So we'll start by cutting two pieces of 14 centimeter 14 gauge. That's too many 14s in one sentence. I'll just use the drawing as my guide since I was pretty precise in my measurements on this. I've got it just a tiny bit longer than it needs to be because I'm going to file the ends. I'm going to start by getting these relatively straight. I found that using my flat nose pliers like this, just to hold the piece, and then using my fingers to bend things rather than using the pliers to bend things, produces a superior result. You have a tendency to kind of overbend if you're using the pliers, and also put sharp angles where you don't really need sharp angles. So I just use it mostly for leverage. Somebody commented a while back how I make it look kind of easy to get things straight. But it just takes a little practice. Square wires always gives you a little trouble because it's got two separate dimensions. You get it straight in one dimension. This one's all messed up by the time you do that. We'll get this one straight, and then you go back to the other one. It's not quite perfect anymore, so you got to go back and forth till you get them both pretty straight. Some people, if they're using round wire, will roll it between two hard surfaces, two nice clean hard surfaces. And that seems to work pretty well. You might work harden it a little bit if you do that. If you've not been to my channel before, I use mostly hard silver sheet solder for almost everything. And I use a liquid flux that I spray on. Or dribble on. One of my YouTube followers sent me some little dropper bottles, which is I'm liking more and more as I use them. Did a little pub show on Sunday, which was nice. I didn't sell a huge amount, but it was a pleasant environment. Nice people. Spent a lot of time shining up all my jewelry, which hasn't been out and about for a while, and it's been a little humid, so everything was a bit tarnishy. So I spent much of the day before with a polishing cloth, getting things looking bright again. So for our purposes right at the moment, that's straight enough, I think. I'm going to go ahead and get the ends filed flat. You could use the miter vice jig for this if you want to, but I'm going to be filing these at a 45-degree angle in a minute anyway, so I'm just kind of going to get rid of any cut marks that are left over from wire cutters. Make sure these are both pretty much the same length. Pretty close, actually. So if you've never seen one of these before, these are called miter vice jigs. And I honestly hadn't seen one before a couple years ago. Nobody bothered to tell me they existed. But maybe I just don't get out much. They have a 45-degree angle in them that you can slide wire into or sheet. And also just a 90-degree angle. The nicer ones have a 60 and 30 as well. But I cheaped out and got the not as expensive one, so I should have held out and paid a little more and got the other one, but someday. So you just kind of clamp it in there and then we can flush and a nice 45 on there. So we'll do the other side. We need to make sure we're facing the same way. That would be something I would do, is put this in the wrong way and have the two angles going in the wrong directions. I have done things like that before. Like I did on the, I did kind of a streamline looking sort of art moderne or art deco ring last week, and I inadvertently soldered the layers of part of the wings on it on the wrong side, so I had to pull them off, flip it around and solder them on the other side. If you want to see that video, that's kind of a cool video. People seem to like that piece. Alright. So we're pretty close to just about what I wanted. Alright, so let's do this second one. Okay, when I look at this one, the one towards me here is slightly shorter than this one, so I'm gonna Take just a skosh off of this one. That's pretty close. So let's cut a couple more of the for the ends here. Those are pretty close. So we're just going to do the same thing we did with these longer ones. Considered doing on this one some of these areas filled in with sheet rather than just having them all see-through, but I think for this one we're going to just go with I always like to check these by putting them back to back like that. It's easier to tell if they're exactly the same length, and those look pretty darn close. So we should be able to now solder these together like this. That looks pretty good. So let's find a spot on my soldering pad and we'll see if we can't get those lined up. I'll use one of these new honeycomb blocks I got from Pepe Tools. Make sure you get all the little filing burrs off, because sometimes they prevent you from getting them to sit right in the way that you want them to sit. Let's give that a try. I'm going to cut myself a few pieces of hard silver sheet solder. I do something called pick soldering, which is where I'll take a soldering pick, pick up a little bit of the solder on the end of my pick by melting it to it, and then heating the piece up to the soldering temperature and then touching it there. It's a way to really allow you to precisely place the amount of solder that you want where you want it to be. And so if you're interested, I have a video up there that shows how to do that. So check that out. That's worth learning. It's a skill that really amped up my skills. Put a little flux on there. The only real trick to pick soldering is not sticking the solder in there until the whole piece is up to the temperature it needs to be. And of course, this bigger piece over here is going to take a little more time to get up to the 1450 degrees that hard silver sheet solder melts at. Pretty slick once you get it up to temperature. We'll cool that off for a second. That's pretty good. Let's see if we can't solder this one on there. That's pretty good. Let's see if we can't repeat that. So I think I didn't quite have this one up to temperature because it jumped on the smaller like that. It's having a tendency to be a little bit too narrow on that end, so I'm trying to get it to stay just about right. Okay, so I'll show you a little trick here. Use the black marker to come up with some precise measurements. So I'm not going to actually measure and make the mark that I'm going to use to cut with the marker, but I'm going to use the marker as a base color I can scratch through so you can see precisely where to make that cut. So in theory, if I just follow to these lines, it should fit in there pretty well. If you need to brace against something to get a nice straight line, you can do that. Sometimes I do that. Depends on the situation. Alright, let's solder that one in. I think I'm going to do this one on the soldering pad. We can do the same kind of thing we were doing before and just flux it and pick a little bit in there. It's tempting when you're soldering just that little piece in there to not heat the whole thing, but you still have to heat the entire piece up to that temperature you want it to be. do this next big one here next. And then we'll fill in those ones over there. I'm not sure if you can see, but I made a little mark so I'd make sure to have it lined up in the right spot and over here as well. Make sure I have enough solder. You don't have to pick solder this, you could just lay some pieces on top of it. That would work just as well, probably. Or you could use paste or whatever method of soldering you use is fine, I think. And we're starting to come together a little bit. I'm going to do a few of these off camera so you don't have to watch me doing the same thing over and over again, but I'll come back at the end and we'll do a few last ones and then we'll pickle it. So you can see I've been working my way across there, and now we're down to the last couple of pieces, these two. So let's get those lined up and soldered on. One thing you might take note of, if you're a beginner and you're using one of those little butane portable torches, you may have trouble once you have a piece that's as large as this and as spread out as this, maintaining the heat you need to get good solder joints. So generally, if you're going to start doing bigger pieces, you'll need to get a little bit hotter torch. Okay, so I think we're golden here. Just going to double check a few of these solder joints. I think we should be pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and pickle that for a while, and then I'll polish it, and I'll come back and show you the final project. So I got everything polished up. It's looking pretty good. And I was going to start shaping it. And mostly I do this by hand. Although you can wrap it around pretty much anything round. A lot of people use an aluminum baseball bat. That'll work too. But I use my little nylon pliers to pinch any areas that are too funky. I use the bracelet mandrel just to get kind of mostly the ends here. Wherever there's extra wire, it's going to be a little bit stiffer, so sometimes you have to use a little extra force in those spots. Of course, these should be shaped to individual wrists when you're doing these. So if somebody's going to buy one from you, I usually keep the tools around in order to shape it to the wrist a little better. Basically what we're going to end up with. And I'll do a little bit of final shaping and maybe a little polishing with a cloth to get it nice and shiny. And then I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. But that's kind of what I was shooting for. Well, I hope you enjoyed the abstract bracelet video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And check out some of my other videos. I have 310 plus videos now. There's tons of different content, lots of project ideas, there's some techniques. There's all different skill levels for people who are at different stages in their silversmithing journey. So check some of those out. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to check out the video description down below as well. There's some important links in there. There's my affiliate link to Pepe Tools, which is a great way to shop for some excellent quality tools over there. So click that and check out what they have. There's a link to my safety video, and you should always take care to use good safe practices when you're doing stuff like this. There's a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page if you want to give me a little cash infusion, which helps a lot. My merch store if you want to get one of those nice design idea books, and my website as well if you want to see some jewelry for sale. And finally, my Patreon site if you're interested in finding out more about that. Check that link out. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you coming to visit. Take care. Happy silversmithing.